All right, well, I'm TJ.
And I'm Julianne, and we read fantasy.
Today we're here with Sarah Henning, author of SeaWitch, super cool novel. And you've got one coming out soon, correct?
I do. SeaWitch Rising comes out August 6th.
Very cool.
And it is the sort of surprise sequel to SeaWitch.
Ooh, there wasn't supposed to be a sequel?
It was written as a standalone, but I always knew what I wanted to do to continue the story, and I'm lucky enough that they wanted to do that. So, yeah. People are like, I have no idea this is coming out. Yeah, it is.
Well, we're stoked.
Surprise!
Yeah, surprise! You can read each of them independently. They're not companions. They are sequels, but they kind of stand alone.
That's cool. That's a different way to set up your books.
Yeah, it was a fun way to do it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you're obviously a YA fantasy author, but you've got some contemporary out there, right?
I do. So I have a book coming out January 7th, 2020 called Throw Like a Girl. It's a YA contemporary football rom-com about a down-spiraling softball player who becomes the not-so-backup quarterback on her ex-boyfriend's football team. Yeah,
That's
very
really cool.
Yes, and then I have another fantasy that's coming out in summer 2020. It's the first of a duology. It's called The Princess Will Save You, and it's sort of like a gender swap Princess Bride.
Awesome.
So you're just awesome.
That is so cool.
I am all over the place.
I think awesome, and I'm keeping it. That's very cool.
Oh, thank you.
It's going to be like Portia in the world of fantasy.
Yeah, yeah, I'm very lucky.
So for those of our listeners who haven't read SeaWitch or maybe have like just seen it around, how would you present the book to them? What's it about?
SeaWitch is the origin story for Hans Christian Andersen's SeaWitch, so not necessarily Ursula of your childhood and Little Mermaid. And so yeah, so it pretty much, it's sort of a retelling of the Little Mermaid, but it's more of a prequel than anything in my mind.
Yeah. That's awesome. What were you doing, or where were you at when the idea of SeaWitch sort of took you?
Well, I don't remember SeaWitch exactly. I know that I had read the Hans Christian Andersen version as an adult, and it's only 75 pages. You can read it in like an hour. And I was like betrayed, like completely betrayed, because the SeaWitch is more of a neutral character who looks at this mermaid and says, you know, do you really want to leave everyone you know and your family and your friends and your life for a boy that doesn't know your name? But then she helps her anyway, and not really for evil means, as in the Disney tale. And so I wanted to explore what kind of person would do that. And so my SeaWitch is set during the time Hans Christian Andersen would have been alive in sort of an alternate Denmark, and just really trying to look at setting up who that person is.
That's really cool. And other than fame, fortune, and immortality, why do you write?
Because I can't not. I can't not. I always wanted to write ever since I was a little kid. I would, staple together a bunch of construction paper drawings and call it a book. And then I became a journalist. I think that was me trying to be practical in feeding that fire. And, it's like, you try to twist your dreams and they don't ever go away. And so I just kept writing, and here I am.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
My daughter makes lots of paper books.
Really?
Sometimes they're tiny. She made one that was really cool. You like open up a page and there's a hole in the next page that shows you what's into the other one.
Oh, that's nice.
How it works. And she's 6 and she pulled it off.
That's awesome.
It works. I was like 4 pages long. I know. I was so proud.
That's awesome.
You might have a future Sarah Henning.
Dear God.
Yes.
I'll pay extra for it. Okay. Well, what issues in your own life have you had to wrangle in order to get where you are?
Well, we've touched on this a little off camera, but I have a full-time job and 2 kids and husband, and hobbies I like to do. I in my bio it says I run ultra marathons, which I do. And so just finding the time. And so I have a very regimented schedule, and I always tell people this whenever I do events, because I want them to understand that it's not like, Hemingway at the beach, like with a typewriter. I wrote the majority of SeaWitch on my phone in the notes app while working out after having a baby. Like that was my time. And so I wrote it, and that's how the first draft happened. And today,
Dang.
my schedule, and so just hang on for this because it sounds really type A. I get up at 4:15 in the morning. I run 6 to 7 miles. I come home, I turn on a coffee pot and stretch, and then I write until 7 or whenever my kids decide that I cannot be alone anymore. And that has worked for me. Like I wrote 2 books and edited another last year. Actually, I guess I edited 2 books last year, but and wrote 2 more. And you know, it's just that's how it has to be for me for right now.
That is the ultimate mommy hustle, but obviously
It's the total hustle.
No, you're doing so good.
Yeah, I mean it's exhausting when I'm on deadline, but it works out pretty well, and my family's really understanding. And you know, as long as I'm not always like that, you know, always like burning them in my oil and everything, then it works out okay.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And what is your most unpopular opinion?
I had to think about this one. So honestly, a lot of book people love Loki. They love Tom Hiddleston. I don't get it. Like that is my unpopular opinion that I just don't get it.
That's like the specific though.
Yeah, I just don't. I want to, but
Who do you like? Who is your favorite?
Oh, Thor.
Thor?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Chris Hemsworth all the way. Like honestly, a lot of people don't like Iker in my book. And I tell them that if you picture him as Chris Hemsworth's Thor, like just saying the lines just as they are, then you're good. Like that's how I picture him in my head.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I'm totally for Thor.
All right, respect.
I'm in Camp Thor too. I'm in Camp Thor. Camp Hemsworth.
I mean, do I have to choose though?
No.
I
she
don't-
can have both.
I don't want to choose.
There's no need to choose.
Yeah.
Yeah. They both seem like nice guys too.
Okay, like in like real life. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could be any character from a story you've read or written, who would you choose?
See, this is hard because any story I write has a little bit of me in it, like no matter what I do, right? And the same thing for other authors' stories, right? And so if I actually personally know them, it's like I hear the story in their voice. And,
Oh, that's funny.
I don't know if I could pick just one. Like honestly, like you know, I'd like to be as badass as Kaz, or as brave as Katniss, or as strong as Caledonia from Seafire. But I think maybe I just pick like Hermione because like I respect her so much. Like might as well, you know. And you know how her story ends. That's the other thing. Like you could pick somebody and their world is awful, even if you respect them.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so true. Katniss has a really hard life.
Right, it has too.
Yeah.
Caledonia is not having a great time if you get to the end of Seafire.
Speaking of other authors, we're having the cool chance to promote you with April Tucholke.
Yes.
You mentioned a book she wrote.
It's Winged Poppy Midnight is amazing and magical and really smart. And I highly recommend it. I read it and I was like, my mind was like blown because I don't think I could ever write a book like that. Like it's great.
The title, I saw the title, Winged Poppy Midnight, right?
Right.
And it's weird and almost kind of literary.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And her writing is very literary in sort of a way too. And you know what? That's actually character names. Like it doesn't sound like it, but it is. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Because you didn't realize that when you started.
That's very clever.
Yeah. It's a super smart book.
Well, we don't get to meet up with her because I guess she's traveling. So
Oh, yeah.
your interview is going to be the face of the whole thing, which is cool because honestly, you're pretty buff.
Oh, thank you.
I think I need to hit the gym now. Yep.
Well,
Yeah, that's right. Go, Sarah.
okay, now that we're talking about strength, though, this is a great segue.
Yeah.
If you can learn any type of magic, ability, or spell, what would you choose?
Well, going back to Hermione, I would totally have her time turner, and you can understand why when I talk about my schedule.
Oh my god, yeah.
Because I use like 100% of my vacation time to do book stuff, so it'd be really nice if I could like stop time for a little while,
Mhm.
get in 2,000 words, and then go back to doing whatever.
Well, just get some sleep, you know? Just
Yeah,
rest.
I'm great at sleeping. This is true. I can't write at night because it keeps me up because I'm thinking about the story and the characters. So I always write in the morning.
Yeah.
I have to be on like major deadline to write at night.
I think it's easier to write in the morning with kids too because they grind your bones to pieces.
I'm just so
By the-
tired.
By the time it's like 10 p.m., you're like,
Yeah,
Have a
and
first
everything is like angry.
Yeah.
Need
All
some
your
water,
characters
wait
are
till
pissed
my
off.
characters.
Yeah.
Yes.
that's funny.
Yes.
What
I'm writing a lot. My son's a competitive gymnast, and I write a lot of his gymnastics practices right now because I was a competitive gymnast, and the main character of the proposal I'm working on is a competitive gymnast, and so I'm like, this is the perfect place to work on this book.
Awesome.
Immerse yourself.
Yeah, because she's way better at gymnastics than I ever was.
She's gonna stick the landing.
Oh,
Yeah, totally.
That's- which animal would you choose if you could choose one for a familiar?
I would pick a cat, but they wouldn't be very helpful. Like I feel like I should pick a bear or something else. But like, if you're gonna be around something all day, like cat seems.
We're cat people.
So,
Yeah, we love cats.
yeah.
Yeah. There's a book, it was Slouch Witch.
Oh, okay.
It's a witch and she has a cat as a familiar and he's not helpful, but when it really comes down to it, he comes in clutch. Like he can save the day. But just
But on a regular
normal.
basis, he's kind of a bad person.
He's really rude. He doesn't help. He demands very much attention and
Funny. So he's a real cat. Like he's not like, in detective novels, you always end up with a cat.
yeah.
I started writing mystery and there's a lot of cats in there. I actually do have a cat in SeaWitch Rising. And his name is the Danish word for tooth butter, which is a Danish phrase for like if you put butter on a piece of bread so thick that you leave teeth marks when you bite through it. Like it's like a totally weird cultural thing. So it's orange tabby cat. His name is Tooth Butter. It's Tansmore or something. I don't speak Danish, but
It's a great name.
yeah.
You got that after going down a deep dive on some research.
Oh, it was a rabbit hole. Yeah, I was like, I need a cat. What am I gonna name this cat?
Buster it is.
3 days later, you're like, I know it.
Yes.
And if you can ask anything of your readers, what would it be?
I touched on this earlier, but don't hate on Iker. And it's Iker. I say in my head Iker, and it's okay if you do too. It's a Basque name. My editor really loved that name. That's the story on that name. But like people really hate him. I think it's because Nick in the story is so lovely, and he's a little bit not. So picture him as Chris Hemsworth, and you're gonna be okay.
Okay. That's great
And
advice.
it's like Icor, like Icor,
It's
ICH.
spelled Ikeer, and it's a Basque name. There's like there's some famous soccer players with that name. And my editor Maria studied in Basque Country, and I studied in Barcelona. And so we decided that because the Basque have a whaling like history, that we just kind of decide to pluck up this Basque name and drop it in fake Denmark.
They do have a really cool history. I watched it.
Yeah.
What setting in the real world inspires you the most in fantasy? Like, where do you like to write the most?
Well, actually, that's funny because so SeaWitch and SeaWitch Rising are both set in my alternate Denmark. Throw Like a Girl is set in Kansas. But The Princess Will Save You is set in sort of an Iberian peninsula, like an alternate Iberian peninsula, and there actually is a lot of Basque and Catalan influence in that story. And so that I'd say that influences me a lot. Like I think about Spain and all the differences and just like the way it's structured as a country. Like it's just very like fascinating to me. When I studied abroad, we like toured all of the castles and and a lot of the medieval things, and like it's just very magical to me. So I think that's where my brain goes. A lot of writers, we set stuff in England, kind of very Tolkien and like George R. R. Martin of us. But for me, it's Spain. Like it just is. And my sister-in-law is actually from Mallorca, so like I'm hoping to get back there and see the islands too. and maybe get some more inspiration.
Why not? Why not? Call it for work, you know?
Yeah, it is work.
Oh, yeah.
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 And you get a vacation.
And a tax write-off.
I need that. Yeah.
Sorry. You get them while you can.
Yes, you do.
Cool. Yeah. No, I know I need to buy a new computer this year. It's technology. You gotta do it. You gotta do it.
And what character in SeaWitch is your favorite?
Nick. Like, he's a cinnamon roll for sure, and I do appreciate him that way. I mean, because for me, he was so fun to write, and there's a lot of flashbacks with him and SeaWitch Rising, because I enjoy his relationship with Evie so much. So yeah, he's a total cinnamon roll. He's a romantic, and it's okay that he can be that way. You know, they don't all have to like carry swords.
It's true. It's
Who
so
else
true.
makes really good cinnamon rolls?
I do.
They're
I
off the
do.
hook, but then I have trouble like with control, and
Yeah,
so
me
I'll
too.
have heartburn for 6 days because I ate 90 cinnamon rolls.
I have issues as well.
Yeah.
Like if they're
That's
not
why I run so much. Honestly.
store-bought cinnamon rolls, you're like, nah, I'm okay. And then a homemade one though, you're like, oh,
That's-
That's
a
what
whole
it's
different
supposed
deal.
to taste like. Yeah. So
Awesome.
I automatically love your character now. So yeah.
Yeah.
He's in my favorite box.
Awesome.
Where can we find you online?
I'm at sarahhenningwrites.com, but I'm mostly on Instagram and Twitter, and it's SH Henning. Someone got S Henning before I could get there. But I do a lot more on Instagram these days than Twitter, but I am there.
Awesome. And do you have any cool readings or cons that you're going to go to anytime soon?
Not readings. I mean, not until like next year. But for SeaWitch Rising, I'm having a launch party in my hometown of Lawrence, Kansas, which is the home of the University of Kansas. Go Jayhawks! And then I'm going to RJ Julia in Madison, Connecticut, with Derek Millman. And then I'm also doing an event in San Jose, California, at a Barnes & Noble there. So far, so we've got a few things happening.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm not in festivals again until next year. Yeah, my books are there. My books are at VA and Y'all Fest and everything, but I'm not.
Yeah, we do. We see your books everywhere.
I'm lucky that they're there. I mean, having 3 publishers helps. So
That's true.
yes.
That's a very good point.
Well, it was a pleasure meeting you, Sarah.
Yeah, it was great talking to you guys.
Thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah, and thanks for doing this really cool promotion. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. People are going to go buy 10,000 copies.
Yeah, let's do
Just
that.
immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
And if they won't, they'll be forced to run a marathon with you.
I should do that.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually several of us that run. We should all just like band together and do some sort of running.
As a punishment for not
Yeah.
reading. And if you do read
Yeah.
cinnamon roll or marathon,
Yeah.
Oh, or then marathon and then cinnamon rolls. I mean,
Oh,
and then you get extra points.
easy choice.
That's when you get a signed copy.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah,
Boom.
it's
Tag.
sure. Yeah, with my sweaty hand.
that. Excellent.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah, of course. No
All
problem.
right. So talk to you soon. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.